Okay, here are the power rankings going into week 2. I'm gonna try to keep this one short and quick so I don't have like an hour long video to upload and I might actually get this one up on time. Again, these are like likelihood to win the championship, not just how good the team is in general. So there's like a lot of things coming into effect. There is not a lot of movement, but like there are some teams that dropped quite a bit and moved up quite a bit. But number 26 is Detroit. They were 25th last week. They lost to the team in 26, so naturally they moved down as the team that won moved up. In 25th is Cincinnati. This team had a tough loss. It was a big loss. I know Foster from the Discord, the Pixelmon server, that he will probably bounce back and he'll probably be fine. But I just have to see it. We just have to see it. But I think he'll be fine. 24 Pittsburgh. I love this team, man. I'm so glad this team won. It is so like I love Hayden and it's the man of the year. But like Pittsburgh, a team with tier 1 Pokemon. It was so cool to see this team win. It was so fucking sick. I hope this team goes 5-0. But even though it was a very dominant win and it was a good win, they did beat the 25th ranked team at the time, and they still have a bunch of tier 1s on their roster, so I think it's going to be very hard for this team to win the championship, but it was a very, very impressive week 1. 23 is Carolina. It was a tough loss. It was Carolina and Minnesota. I really think are very even teams. I think Carolina had slightly the better team with the ability to set the weather up at will, but unfortunately they did end up losing that game, so I had to move down a little bit. Then we have Lon Lon's team. So Lon Lon did move down a little bit, however, I don't think Lon Lon played bad at all. I think Lon Lon had a very good game, and it was actually one of his best games that he had that ended out in a loss. He didn't really make any misplay the entire game, except for the end where he kind of got rid of Gengar. But overall, he played like a very good game. He's actually getting a lot better each season. But if he can start turning these games into wins, I could see him moving up, but we just have to see it. We just have to see it more. He was improved a lot last season. It looks like he has improved again. He was just fighting a very tough opponent, but we'll see. I see hope in this team. Minnesota. This was a team that was very low on, but it did come out. They beat Carolina, so they went out. They did their job. Next week they face the Rose Raiders, so it'll be an interesting game. See if they can put like 2 wins together. If they can, this might be an interesting team, because I said in the rankings after the draft that this team is sneaky, and like I think weather is sneaky good when you don't have a weather setter, because if you catch the other team by surprise, like, oh, this team, they have weather Pokemon, but they don't have weather setters, so they under prep for the weather, and if you bring it out when they're not expecting it, then you catch them by surprise and might get like a sneaky win. But we'll see how that goes. 20 is Indianapolis. This team, they had a good game week 1. They beat Lon Lon. They did all the right things. This was a very good game. I hope this team does well. It's a very interesting team. But I didn't see anything yet that's like, oh, this team's like turn the corner. They're going to be like a really, really strong team yet. But they didn't also get in a position where they had to step up big time. But we'll see. Like, I do see some potential in this team though. Arizona 19. So this team moved up quite a bit. I was pretty low on this team. I was very low on this team, but they came out with a really, really big win. I think, yeah, their big 4-0 win. So it was a huge win for them against Dallas, who I had ranked pretty high. So this was a very good win for Arizona. Vegas. So this team, I think, this is a team that I was really low on last season, and everyone was really high on them. But they did end up losing week 1. It was only a small loss. They played Minnesota week 2. So this would be a very telling game. Like, this would probably say like who's out of these 2 teams, Vegas and Minnesota, which one's like a legit team, which one could like actually make a run for playoffs, and which one might need another season to like kind of rebuild their roster. So this will be a very important game for both teams. 17 over Kansas. I love this team. I really like this team. It was a massive win in week 1, a really massive win. I really want this team to do good. I think it can. It had really 2 rough seasons for this one, so it's hard to say, oh, this team's just going to be legit and can win a championship. I think the coach has to like prove himself a little bit, put some wins back to back, show that he can like hang with the best coaches, because I think it's possible. This is my dark horse team for the season. Dallas. Dallas is a very good team. Did have a pretty big loss week 1. It was very high for a new coach. Maybe he just needs a little time to kind of get the hang of the team, get the hang of like draft and everything. But overall, this is a very strong team. I think it's going to be fine. We might just have to wait and see how long it takes for the coach to kind of like get a hang of it. And then once he does, I think this team will be like Chicago a little bit. A team that starts slow, that once the coach gets the hang of it, they'll just kind of surge home. And speaking of Chicago 15. This is a very solid roster. I think the coach is solid. I think this is like a middle of the pack team for now. It was a tough game, week 1. Essed's team, I was kind of low on. I don't think it synergizes like that well together, but it just has really fucking good Pokemon. So maybe I was a little too low on it, because like Weavile, Aegislash, there's just so many good Pokemon that can just kind of come through and win a game. So it is kind of tough to deal with them, but if you want to win a championship, you kind of have to deal with them. So I think this is a solid team. I think Matt's a pretty good coach, so we'll see if he can put it back together for the rest of the games this season. And then 14 Denver. So Denver actually moved up. Even though they lost. They really moved up because I thought, when I was really thinking about it, I think Zone is just a good coach. I think Zone is like probably top 5 coach. And I just think the teams that were above him that lost as well just had to be moved down a little more. But the problem with this team I'm kind of seeing is that I don't know how good they are against the top teams. They lost to the Aqua Jets and they lost to Buffalo in the playoffs. I think they might have beaten a really strong team in the regular season last season, but other than that, I think their opponents were kind of average to below average. And if this team does kind of have a trend where they kind of dominate the lower team but then can't beat the good teams, it's going to be tough to win a championship. And it's the same thing as I said with Buffalo's team last season. They have a good team, they just match up poorly against the best teams. If this is how Denver is going to be, it's going to be tough. But I know Zone well enough to know that he will kind of love the extra challenge, so we'll see how it goes. But I did move him up, so I think he can do it. This was a team that moved up, I think, from like 18 to 13. I think I might have just underestimated the fact that this team just has really strong Pokemon. They might not necessarily synergize the best together, as in I don't think there's like a single defensive Pokemon on the team off the top of my head. But it just has good Pokemon. The coach is good. I think he went 4-1, not last season, but the season before. Like, he's good. It's his 4th season in draft. I think this team can be scary. I just don't know how good it's going to be against the top teams. But I think against like an average team to a below average team, I think they're going to dominate their games. I do. I just don't know how they're going to beat the best teams with like no defense at all. 12 Green Bay. So Justin Williams, he's going on a little streak here. He's put 3 wins together. The last 2 games from last season, then a win now. He plays Matt and the Chicago Bearticks, and then in week 3 he plays Palafins. So if he wins this week, he puts 4 wins together, then he's competing against Palafins on a 4-win streak. If he wins week 3 and 2, like, how do you not say that this is like a top 5 team? Like, this team has a chance to surge in the rankings. Like, the team's good. The coach started rough, but like, if he puts 5 wins together, Like if the timing lined up, that would be a 5-0 season. That's crazy. So this is an interesting team. Keep your eye on it. He's starting to build some consistency. Buffalo 11. So this team lost 6-0, but the loss was not as bad as you think. Like if you just look at the thing, 6-0, this guy got dominated. That's not kind of how the battle went, like at all. This was a brutal game. This game went on for so long, and it was a 6v6 like the entire time. He really did go like toe to toe with the Pelicans, and then once one Pokemon died for either team, the teams were just going to fall apart. Like things were getting weak, things were getting low. Unfortunately, his team was just like the first team to break, and then it all just came like crumbling down. That's kind of how it goes. When you have like a 68 turn battle, and you're like in like turn 50 or whatever, and nothing's died yet, things are getting chipped down, things are getting weakened, and then you just get to the point where everything's so low that you just can't do anything anymore, and it just kind of falls apart. But it was a really, really good game. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's fallen back into the trap a little bit where he's too passive. Like, he has a defensive team, but it doesn't mean you have to be passive with it. Like, Reuniclus and Togekiss, their special attacks are through the roof. They can set up, they can just dominate. He figured it out at the end of last season that you don't have to be passive all the time with these defensive Pokemon. I think in our game he was a little bit too passive. So I think if he can kind of find the sweet spot where you want to be defensive, but you also want to be aggressive at the same time with certain Pokemon, that's kind of the thing he has to figure out if he wants to win the championship. 10 is New York. This is a very strong team. The coach is good. They moved up quite a bit, I think. I think they were around 13th before. This is just a good team, solid team. It was a good win. They fight the Pelicans this week. If they beat the Pelicans, and that will cement themselves as like, this is still a legit team. 9, it's Tennessee. So they lost in a game which was like the greatest game I've ever seen. It was one of the closest games I've ever seen. And I wasn't reading the chat in this game, but I was talking to Ben, and Ben was laughing his ass off because apparently Frost was bragging about how he calculated this and how he was going to win. And then the stars just aligned for the Hexans, and they got the most absurd comeback and victory of all time. And for me, just to know that that happened to Frost, it's fucking hilarious. And I love it. But he played well. He did very good. It's just Chien-Pao just kind of clutched it up. So it didn't drop in too much. I think he might have even moved up. I'm not 100% sure. So Washington moved down just a few spots. This is a new coach. They went head-to-head with another new coach who I know are both very good in draft and very good at Pokemon. So they didn't drop too far. I think this team's going to be fine. It's a good team. I think the coach is very good, so I think they'll be fine. 7 is Seattle. So Seattle had a fucking dominant win. It was an incredible win against the defending champion. This was an insane win. This team is legit. This team is 100% still a championship contender. 6 is Philly. So Philly dropped a lot. Philly dropped from 2 to 6. It was a rough loss. And if I'm going to be honest, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, I truly did not believe this team was number 2 going into the rankings after the draft. I'll be honest, I put them number 2 because I didn't want the heat. I didn't want to face the heat of like, oh, you put yourself over Philadelphia, you scum, you trash. This is bias. This is the bias ranking. I didn't believe this team was number 2. I think it's a very good team. I just think it has a little bit of holes in it. I think it has a lot of good things about it, but I think there are holes in it that can be taken advantage of, and I think we saw that in week 1. So I kind of put it at number 2 to be like a safe ranking. I just kind of wanted to see if anyone was going to be able to exploit the weaknesses that I kind of had a feeling that were there. Everyone hyped this draft up as to be like one of the best drafts ever, and then when I really looked into it, I was like, it's good. It's really solid. I don't think it's like top tier. But this team did win the championship. The coach is good. I think this team's going to be solid. I just don't think they're like, oh, this is a clear 1 and 2. Cleveland, Philadelphia are the best teams in the league. I think this team is firmly in the pack of like like 8 to 9, or even 10, like top 10, like top 10 are all pretty close. I think this team is just within the pack and not like leagues above everyone else. Um, but this is a good team. I think it's gonna be solid. Um, I think I'm happy with the ranking of 6. 5 is Jacksonville. This was a fucking good win. So this was a huge game for Jacksonville. Like Jacksonville needed to win this game to kind of win me over as a believer in this team. If they had lost, I would have been like, because I was kind of feeling I don't know if this team can actually go the distance and just beat the big teams consistently. But he's beaten me. He's beaten Fruit. Like, I think this team is legit. I think this team can win the championship. I think this team is scary as fuck. I think this is Jacksonville's year. I think if there is a team that is like can win the championship and has to win it now, and this is their year. I think last year was Seattle's year. This year is Jacksonville's year. Like, this is their year to take it. 4 is San Francisco. This team, it's a good team. I think it's pretty even with Washington, but they were fighting each other. One of them has to win. It was a pretty dominant win. It was a very good win. His prep was good. His plays were good. I was very impressed. So I had to move him up a little bit. I think this team's very good. It's gonna be scary. I'll be real. It's gonna be scary. This coach, I know is good. I don't know how good, but I know he's fucking good. If he's like up there with one of the best, because I don't know how high his ceiling is. I just know he's fucking good. I know he's already in the top 5. If he's like leagues above everyone, which is very possible, then it's gonna be a rough season for anyone to do anything. I'll be real, because this team's good. Number 3 is Houston. Houston, strong team, strong game. It was a strong performance. Frost has a good team. Frost has a really strong team. Did very well. It came down to like everything kind of aligning perfectly, and he came out and got like a clutch win. So I will say though, if I'm going to be honest, and if I was going to look at this the way I look at sport games when I do the bets on them and stuff, and like when I now like analyze the game, this was one of the games where he won, but it's not repeatable. Like, the turn of events that happened in this game is kind of down to luck, which makes a fucking amazing game to watch. Like, an amazing game to watch. But I don't think it's repeatable, as in, like, I heard someone say that the chance of Chien Pao living that hit was like 16%, which is very unlikely. The fact it happened is fucking amazing, and it's hilarious, and it's like so good to watch, and like we fucking love it. But again, that game came down to a 16% chance of him winning, and the ball just like bounced in his favor. The reflect turns running out as they did, again, like cool, like everything just kind of lined up perfectly for him to like get the win. But like if you replay that battle like so many times over, like after Slowbro's dominance, for him to kind of come back is like, it was so unlikely, and like things just had to go his way, and they did, and it was fucking amazing to watch, and like you love it. But I don't think we can like overreact to that comeback, and like we have to respect it. Like, it was there, we just don't overreact to it, and I think that's fair. Because if you're relying on your Pokemon to like live a hit, when you have a 16% chance to live it or something, that's rough. And like he lived on 1%. Like, again, fucking amazing to watch, but I don't know how repeatable it is. However, they still did win, and it was still an amazing comeback to even get to that point after Slowbro just kind of teared the fuck out of his team. It was still impressive. It was still a very good game, and like not taking anything away. Very good game, very good performance. I think they're a top 3 team. Number 2, Cleveland. This was a tough game for Cleveland. I think Jacksonville just kind of stepped up and was like, yeah, Jacksonville, they're a top team. They proved their worth. Cleveland is interesting because this is a coach that I really think is elite. However, their performances have been very up and down the last season, and then coming into this one. They were dominant. They won the championship in his first season. He seems to be struggling against the top teams, though. That's something I'm kind of noticing. when he's fighting the top teams, it seems to be rough. I'm pretty sure he was eliminated first in playoffs last season. Couldn't beat Jacksonville here. It wasn't the most dominant season last year. I think he was like in the back end of the playoffs. But then he has also won a championship, so he can do it. It's just inconsistent. And if you're inconsistent, it's gonna be tough to win the championship. But this is the best team, like individual team. This is the best team in the league. It's scary as fuck. We just have to see how it goes. He plays Denver week 2. So this is gonna be a very big game. I think this is probably the game of the week. Denver and Cleveland. If Cleveland lose, it's gonna be rough. It's hard to justify that they are a top team, even with the roster they have, if they consistently lose to other teams that are good. So we'll see. Number 1 is Miami. Out of all the teams in the top 3, they had a big win. It was 6-0. It was a good game. Like the teams, the game was insane. It just went back and forth, like the 6 Pokemon alive to the end. But they were the team that didn't break, and it didn't look like they were going to break anytime soon. Like that defensive core was still very healthy by the time Buffalo kind of fell apart. It looked like they could have gone on for a very long time. I think this team's fucking terrifying. The defense is crazy. The offense is crazy. We'll see how it goes. The coaches won a championship before. It's going to be interesting. So this is the rankings for going into week 2. I think I want to see how the Kansas are like my dark horse team. I think that's the dark horse team that could push into playoffs and kind of do damage. I think Denver's interesting as well. That's going to be a big game, Denver, Cleveland. I think Dallas and Buffalo, it's another big game. Like, if one of these teams fall to 0-2, which one of them is going to, because they're playing, it's going to be tough for the other team to say, oh, this team's still at least an average team, because there's only so many like benefit of the doubts we can keep giving Buffalo. Like, they kind of fall down and they kind of rise up a little bit, and then they kind of end up falling apart again, and they kind of just go back and forth with wins and losses. And it's like, oh, are they legit? Okay, maybe they are. Okay, maybe they're not. And then maybe they are. They need to just figure their shit out and just put consistent wins together and just actually prove they're like a top team, because they just keep falling apart when you expect them to win, and then when you expect them to lose, they kind of step up. But it's just back and forth. They need to figure their shit out. They need to figure it out. Dallas, I just think it's a really good team, and then we just gotta wait for the coach to put it together. If he can get a win here, and then in week 3 he plays. Let's have a look. Week 3 he plays the Calder Colts, Indianapolis. So these are 2 very winnable games. I think if he's going to be legit, he has to win them both. If he's going to prove to be a top team and like a contender for the championship, I think he needs to win them both. I think it's possible to win them both. So keep an eye on Dallas. I think Dallas is going to be interesting. Chicago is like another team in the middle that can like surge home. They did it before. I think this team's good. And then the last one to really look at is like the Rampardos. Lon, he's proving he's getting better. He just needs to show that he can put multiple games together with no mistakes and good prep. Once he does that, I think he can elevate to like very consistent like 11th, 12th, 13th team. And then once he gets to there and like solidifies his spot there, then he can start improving on some other skills, and then eventually get to like a top team and like be an actual threat to win the championship. But like, I believe in Lon. I think he can do it. He's one of my favorite people in the league. I want to see this team do good. I really do. So hopefully London can win. He plays Pittsburgh. So if he loses to Pittsburgh, the team of tier ones, it's gonna be embarrassing. It'll be embarrassing for London, and it will kind of question everything I know about him and his growth as a player. So London, if you're watching, which you should be, you better win. Yeah. Thank you all for watching.